All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Memorial Day. Happy Monday. I hope you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I'm back up. I I was ready to go on, and then I just tilted the computer monitor slightly, and then all of a sudden, my adapter actually this computer's plugged in. There's no battery or anything, so my adapter flicked off, and then the power shut off. So I'm back. I think so. Let's go ahead and see if you guys would, of course, as per usual, just see if audio is good. If yeah, it looks like audio or it looks like video is good, but I can't hear myself. Okay. Of course, my prof confirms, my wonderful prof confirms that I look and sound great. So, yeah, wonderful to have you guys on. We'll welcome the chat, and then we'll just, just talk about, I would say just a lot of things. And it will really center around kids and music or um, our cultural perspective on children in general. But even though I'm talking about it, talking from experience, as a music teacher and also as a violinist, classically trained violinist, someone who's been in the music education experience for over 25 years, I will say that this probably can apply to our American culture with children in general, whether the person is pursuing any kind of art or any kind of sport. And I'd be curious what you guys would think too. So before we get started, let's go ahead and welcome the chat and see how everything is. Go Team Ghost Planet says, see you guys soon. Welcome, Go Team Ghost. And Big Al Presents says, always have a great stream. And Allmark, if you don't mind me saying, he's my mastering engineer for my music. And he says, I've never been, impressed by children making music, but it's talked about a lot on YouTube, parents using their children for some revenue. Is it revenue? Is that what you mean? Or reviews? I don't know. But welcome. And then my wonderful prof says, ready for your wisdom, my Tanuviel. I don't know if it's going to be so much about wisdom as it will be about ranting about stuff, ranting as a music teacher. And I think, I don't know what Dr. Y is saying, but you're saying the doctor is in. Welcome. And Jigwa, thank you again. I did get your email on that link. I did have the link for a little bit. And yeah, Daniel Heron, aka Soundtracks with Birdman, had a wonderful show, a live stream show of the Houston Symphony Orchestra. Good sounding orchestra. We're talking about orchestra playing and stuff. And Houston Symphony was terrific. It was really, really, really fun to watch. It was wonderfully done. Soundtracks with Birdman was, I think he was happy for the most part. I think the one disappointment, I didn't hear it from him, but maybe for John Williams concert, maybe 3 encores, not one. But I didn't mind because they did very involved music, something that demanded a lot of aptitude by every instrumental section, every family of instruments. So they were probably pretty tired by the end of it. So I didn't mind that there was only one encore, but yeah, it was really well done. All right. So, and Brian Gilmartin, welcome. It's good to have you. I wonder what the context of tonight's topic is. Well, I did put down the controversial ad, the Nissan controversial ad, and I say controversial in quotes for a reason. We're going to get to that. Okay, so it looks like we do have some responses from this Nissan ad. If you wanted to review it, it's like 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds. If you wanted to see what I mean. So let's actually, before we even talk about all of this and then ultimately talk about the cultural perspective and I think an unhealthy cultural perspective on our youth here in the United States, let me get to the responses of this controversial ad. So response number 1 by Dr. Y. The top comment sums it up perfectly. If there was ever a commercial that made me think never buy this product, then congratulations, Infinity, you created it. Whereas Brian Gilmartin says, now I remember why I dropped cable. That rendition of the 2001 Space Odyssey or the Strauss opening, that was trash. And then Big Al says, honestly, it felt like an innocent attempt at humor in the commercial, just my 2 cents. So I think I'm going to stop there. Let's see if we can welcome anyone else. I think that's everyone, and everyone confirming that I sound good. Good. Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. I actually have my microphone slightly closer, so that's good. I might even bump it, so hopefully I don't. But anyway, interesting responses. So really, probably for the first time ever in the history of live streaming on YouTube, I agree with Al on this one. Let's put up uh, Al's comment. And Al and I, and maybe the prof. I think the prof would probably be in on this this boat. Or this bandwagon, whatever. And it's not a bandwagon because it's probably just the three of us. Honestly, felt like an innocent attempt at humor in the commercial. Just my 2 cents. So I will probably be, especially from the music side of it, the music side of things as a teacher and as a violinist, I will probably be of the very, very small minority that thinks that not only was there, as far as the commercial itself, the objective show of the commercial, not behind the scenes or anything, because there's more controversy behind the scenes, but just the commercial itself. I didn't find it offensive at all, and I found it, maybe if you want to say tasteless, but I didn't even really find it that tasteless. I actually found it pretty humorous, not substantially humorous, but I found it just made sense. It just made sense. So there's a lot to talk about, and again, this is an impromptu stream. There's no notes. I didn't really prepare for it. This is just me mulling over my thoughts. So basically, we'll get into the topic of, at least here in the United States. I can't speak for the world in general. I can't speak for different regions, places in Europe, places in Asia, especially, China, Korea, South Korea, and Japan. I can't speak for places like Austria too. But I can speak with some degree of confidence. I can speak of the music education experience in the United States, and it is different from different parts of the world. So anything I say regarding the music education experience really is involved with the U.S. If any of my listeners are listening, who are from South America or Europe or whatever the case is, if you understand or know of a different kind of music education experience, just go ahead and put that in the comments below. I'd love your 2 cents on that. So anything I have to say is my experience as an American, someone who's classically trained, who's got 3 music degrees, so music in higher education, and then who's also professionally a music teacher and a professional musician. So that out of the way. So we will be talking about, certain unhealthy things that I have seen concerning the youth, concerning children pursuing music. But if you guys have any experience in the other art forms or in things like sports or school clubs, just go ahead and leave your comments in the chat or in the description or below the description. That's what I meant to say. So, but before all that, let's actually set up some context. So let me grab a swig of water. So I got to thinking about all of this because of not the Nissan ad, but the response to the Nissan ad. So if you look at the comments, and then if you actually go to YouTubers like Two Set Violin, they're a comedic duo. They're classically trained violinists. They're very good at violin playing, and violin performance. They're great musicians. They know their stuff about classical music and just the music performance experience in general. Studying music at the university, they know all of that, and they're really funny. But they did have their 2 cents. Boy, did they have their 2 cents on this ad, and they presented it in this way. They were like sacrilegious, and they're really funny about their sacrilegious topics. Actually, they're really funny guys. So, okay, so there's this sacrilegious ad that Nissan put up, and their title. If you go to their YouTube channel, and I love these guys. No matter what I say about them, Two Set Violin. I do. I'm very entertained by these guys. But they put on their title the commercial or the ad that offends every musician, and in so many words I can't really remember the exact title of that video. But they they had their input, and they actually were pretty pretty assertive, and they had their opinions. It's their channel; they can have their opinions. But they were really miffed. They were really angry at the commercial. They did it in their own comedic way, but they roasted the commercial. But they actually then got into just a little bit of a serious tone, which I kind of hope they avoid. I mean, I know they should talk about serious things like, you know, instruments getting stolen or damaged, or maybe the mental health of professional musicians. I get that every once in a while, but I kind of hope they just stick with the comedy. But they were kind of having this serious tone about this ad insulting children learning music. Now they're based in Australia, and they are Asian. I'm actually not sure exactly where each of them are from. So I won't even give the specific locations, but they're based in Australia, from the East Asian culture of music education. And I will say that East Asian music education is very different from American music education, apart from the marching band. The marching band being the exception. American music education, compared to the rest of the world, especially compared to someplace like East Asia, is actually quite subpar. It's pretty average. It's like C tier compared to East Asia. East Asia is usually top A tier for probably world music, like East Asian music, but also for Western music. Actually, East Asian regions, they trump us when it comes to Western classical music, in many ways, and also in things like marching band, or not marching band, wind ensemble. Like, the Japanese, for instance, their level of practice and rehearsals and all of that stuff is like way higher standards than our standards as American. And actually, that's just been part of American history, where just music education has not been the level of France, for instance, the level of some places like Europe and Asia. So they because of that, they have a very different cultural experience and perspective on music education. In addition to that, they also have a very different family dynamics. The family dynamics of East Asian families, both in Asia, regions, and then also in America. I lived in Seattle, where it was I would say, I mean, if I can remember correctly, probably between the 30 to 40% East Asian population in Seattle, because it's like a port city. It's an international. We got international airport. We've got water through the ocean. That didn't make sense. We're next to the ocean in Seattle. So we're next to Japan, per se, like, in so many ways. So because of that, a lot of traveling from East Asia to places like Seattle. And I had a lot of friends with that background, especially Korean American. Korean American was pretty much the more predominant when talking about region. And so I grew up with a lot of Korean American friends. Half our orchestra was white, and then half of it, probably more Asian. So I had a little bit of that, just a taste of that experience, and parents of East Asian families regarding music education, but probably for things like medical school and science and math and stuff like that, it is stricter. East Asian families, their parents are much stricter than parents of white and Black American families. So that's a little bit of that cultural context, that my opinion, my perspective, even as a violinist, like two set. Now I'm not on their level of playing, I don't think. But even my perspective as a violinist and music educator, music teacher, because of the cultural differences, will be different. So I don't think they'll watch me stream. I don't think they'll watch this video. Any differences of opinion that I have to set, I'm just going to say, if you are watching, I have mad respect for your comedic entertainment. But because of our cultural differences and experiences, our opinions will differ as far as how we view this ad. So just all that context, they were pretty miffed at really declaring uh, that the ad was quite insulting to youth. Youth, like the youth age. From children to high school. From young children to teenagers, getting into the music performance experience. That they were saying, in so many words, they were saying that the ad was very insulting to children. Now, I do get it, and I don't want to be callous, or I don't want to be apathetic, or whatever the case is. But when they started talking about that, their video was, I don't think, any more than 13 minutes or so. Well, they have a huge following. If you've ever seen Two Set, they have almost 4 million subscribers. They're and I'm sure they have more watchers than they have subscribers, because they're really popular. Everyone in the music community, I mean, everyone knows them. They are the PewDiePie of the classical music world. And so because of that, they have a very strong following. They have a huge following, a lot of admirers, and actually they really did, based by their videos, by their content on classical music, and entertaining us with things involving classical music. They've really they have inspired a generation of people wanting to pursue music and do well in music. So because of that, I could see why they would be miffed at an ad like this. This is only controversial. This ad is only controversial to me because of the well, it's actually not controversial to me. It's controversial because of the outcry. That's where I see the controversy. Well, okay. I should phrase that better. It's a highly controversial ad because of the public response. Well, I want to say this carefully. Why do I feel so apologetic? Not like I'm not apologizing. I just want to phrase this carefully. Um, it is kind of a tasteless humor kind of ad that caused a lot of people to get angry and offended and insulted. So because of all of that, I would say it's controversial. I guess that's what controversy means, right? Like the outcry of something, not so much the content. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think it works, in both ways. So anyway, going back to Two Set, they talked about, how it is insulting to the youth, and then I started reading the comments, and because when I saw that, when they played the ad, and then they reacted to it, and then I was kind of laughing. I saw their faces, and they're being comedic, but I saw their faces, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, when there's that kind of semicircle of young musicians, and actually musicians of, like, from 8 years old to 18. Okay, you got to be careful when you're saying, well, that's a whole orchestra. It's like, well, no, it's usually a youth symphony is from 14 to 18. A junior symphony is probably from 11 to 13 or 10 to 13. Depends on the level, but you don't really see, it's rare, at least in America, to see a couple of 8-year-olds with a handful of 17-year-olds. Anyway, so you see this semicircle surrounding a new Nissan Infiniti model. And then you see a woman sit in the car, and you can tell by the exchange of her looking at the rearview mirror and seeing her daughter play. I think it's violin or viola. I really can't tell. She's probably small in stature, so a violin could look like a viola. But you could see that the girl is looking at the car, and it's implied that there is an exchange between a mother and a child, a daughter. And then when the Strauss opening reaches that final climax, and it's really bad music or bad sounding, of course the mother rolls up the windows and then rolls up the window of the roof of the car roof. So she still hears the sound, but it's better absorbed. And the whole point of that ad was not to say, I don't think this is right. And it's not cleverly done, I will say. People are saying, you can't soundproof a car. That's a safety hazard. I don't think it's soundproof. I actually think it's trying to imply that you won't hear much road noise. Like, you've I'm sure you guys have been in um, a very noisy car, like a truck, and a very smooth car, like a very quiet car, whether small or large. It's a very different road experience. It's not that you're, removing sound completely. No, of course you have to hear oncoming traffic in your blind spots and traffic on the side of you. Of course, that's a given. No engineer, no designer would ever cause, well, who knows these days, but cause a safety hazard by blocking all sound. So yeah, okay. The mother's relaxing. She's covering up most of the sound, and then she's kind of leaning back in kind of a luxury way, and she kind of tunes it out. Well, I kind of found that funny for a reason. You know, Again, this is my American take on it. I can't speak for Asia, I can't speak for Europe, I can't speak for, South America, whatever the case is. Um, I can't speak for America. Um, so her rolling up the windows to kind of cancel a lot of that the bad noises, um, and her leaning back, relaxing, it was kind of at least funny to me because I grew up with that. I started violin around 8 years old, and I joined the orchestra. Yes, it was actually 9 years old. I started the violin at 9 years old, and then I joined the orchestra. And you know what? We suck. When you're a beginner, especially with 40 other beginners, you're gonna be terrible. But that's part of the learning, that's part of just starting out. And now as a music teacher of going on 7 years and teaching mostly beginning students, you gotta get the terrible out. You gotta get the bad out. And that's just part of growing pains. That's just part of musical growing pains. And parents, in my experience as a kid, with my own parents, with my friends' parents, and every other family member that came to our shows in those gymnasiums before it became the auditoriums, those parents didn't wanna hear good music because they knew they weren't gonna get good music. They knew they weren't going to an elite concert symphony in a nice concert hall. They went to listen to bad music because they were proud of their kids for trying. By and large, at least in the American education experience and my experience as a child growing up and learning violin and mastering the violin, and then also now as a music teacher, parents will love and support their children for trying and for wanting to pursue to get better. And some of the comments that I did see on Two Set Violin, who thought it was humorous were actually parents who said, "Hey, I have 3 kids. They all took music lessons. I love them, but I did not go to their concerts for their music. I went to their concerts to support them. I'd rather be doing something else." So I kinda see how that mother was kinda leaning back, so some parents actually got the humor of that. Now, the major complaint about this ad among the comments section was, "Oh, this ad is discouraging young children from pursuing music. My parents never made me." Well, that's gonna be another topic. "My parents never wanted me to pursue music. My parents discouraged me from pursuing music." Now, by the way, if that's a real experience, and I've taught adults who have had that experience, so I understand. I've talked with adults who aren't my students who've had that experience where their parents is like, I'm like, I wish my parents got me into music lessons. I have heard that time and time again. In fact, at least in my experience as a music teacher, parents want their children to play the violin or to have music lessons because their parents didn't do the same for them. And I have asked adults, I said, well, why don't you take violin lessons with me? Like, oh, it's too late for me. That's gonna be another topic, and in this stream, because it's all gonna connect. It's all gonna connect. So anyway, so the major complaint was this ad is so insulting because it's discouraging kids from pursuing music lessons. And it's like, you know what? I get it. And you want to be the encouraging teacher, but you've got to be the pragmatic teacher as well, saying, listen, guys, we're gonna work hard. We're gonna start rough. It's gonna be a rough couple of years. You know, you're gonna have to figure out how this instrument works, whatever the instrument is. You're gonna have to figure out how to get that tone. You're gonna have to figure out how to play together as an ensemble. And I can't say it with East Asia because I'm sure they have top tier beginning level orchestras, but at least in the American education experience, the beginning band, the symphonic band, the main orchestra, the string ensemble, whatever the case is, if it's beginning, it it's gonna sound like what we heard in the Nissan commercial. And that's fine. That's just part of growing up, it's part of the musical growing pains. You have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. So a lot of people were really offended and outraged because this ad was kind of bringing out a kind of psychology, like this kind of psychological response uh, with a lot of these people. One one of the response was, as I had mentioned before, it was like it was churning up regret. Like, my parents never put me in music lessons. My parents should have done that for me. So it was almost like a therapy thing, like kind of bringing stuff out, like these different regrets in life. That was one response, and then ultimately the second response was saying, "Oh, this ad on cable will discourage people, discourage young people for pursuing music because they're only going to be mocked. This is only playing to the stereotype that music is bad and not, music making is it sounds awful and it's not worth pursuing." It's like, no, it's just a little humor. I'm a music teacher. I've mastered the violin. I've lived through that experience. I have played in orchestras of all levels, from mediocre, from beginning to mediocre to highly competitive. And I've played in very good youth symphonies. I've played in civic orchestras. I've played in a university symphony. I've played in, from 9 years old, probably until 23. I was in an orchestra every year. So I know all of that. I know we have good concerts. I know we have terrible concerts. It's just part of the experience. And kids need to, if they want to pursue music, they need to understand that is going to be the progress. That is going to be the progress. When you start out with something or start out on something, you have to be okay with sounding the way you sound. I taught students in North Carolina that I had to really lovingly push to play on stage, because their number one fear was not forgetting a note, for not making a mistake, even though that was a couple of them. Although actually all of my students were deathly afraid of making a mistake. I'm like, I make mistakes all the time performing, even now. I had a couple of students, one girl I remember in particular, she did it. She did it. But she was so afraid of sounding bad. And I said, listen, you're just starting the violin. Just go out there. Your family's going to support you. People are going to understand that you're just starting out. Most of the children were starting out. It's just part of it. It's just part of it. She did. And actually, surprisingly, I remember it. She comes back to me. I'm applauding. I'm like, that was great. She comes back to me. She's like, I sounded so terrible. And actually, in fact, and I would have been honest too, because I'm very objective when it comes to my students' performance. I would tell her what to improve and then what was good. She actually sounded the best she had ever sounded, but I think she quit a few months after that. And I think it was maybe she just wasn't a performer. Maybe playing on stage wasn't her thing. Grab a swig of water. But but I would just say that, yeah, okay, so it could be a stereotype, young musicians playing badly, it could be a stereotype, but it's not. It's I can't imagine every single parent seeing that ad saying, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not getting my kid in music lessons. Oh, I'm saving myself." I really don't think parents think like that. Seeing it from an ad, it was supposed to be just humorous. I found it a little humorous, and I'm very. It's kind of enlightening to see the outcry of this. Now we will talk about the outcry and the public response, because I think this is playing on a deeper level, on a deeper level of our perspective on youth and actually on age in general, at least in America. At least in America, I do want to talk about a very unhealthy perspective we have on children, and then also just growing up and being an adult in general. So let's get to the chat, and then we'll talk about that. Oh, actually, before we even talk about that, because I do want to make sure I'm getting this right. I think there has been a little bit more controversy regarding this ad on the setup of the ad. I wouldn't mind talking about this. Maybe I should talk about it now just to get it over with, because I wouldn't want to forget this, before I close the stream. Don't worry, I'm not closing the stream. Um so let me talk about, because if someone from like the two set audience, because I had made a comment, and I got only one guy push back on. He thought I was an uncaring teacher. No, probably not. But if anyone read my comment on Two Sets video and then looked at this, they might actually argue this point if I don't make it. So I'm preparing. I don't know why I'm preparing. No one's gonna watch this. No one from Two Sets audience is gonna watch me. So let's talk about a little bit more of what I would say could be really controversial, and that is actually the setup of the commercial. So Two Set actually did a follow-up video on so they did a sacrilegious video, and then I think a few days later they did a shorter video as a follow-up. Apparently there was someone who emailed them and said to them that they had participated in the ad, and they were very glad that Two Set brought it up. And in so many words, the email said that they were quite shocked with the response that they got. They were shocked with the music they heard. So here's the context of the ad. They it was a group of musicians who were capable of playing, and based on this email, this person said that they had to go through an audition process to get the role in this ad. And this person auditioned with the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, the first movement. So she or he was a very apt player. They hid the name, so I can't tell if it's a boy or a girl. But someone capable enough to audition with the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. So advanced level violin playing. And so they went through an audition process, and then the participants who were selected, they were given the Strauss piece, the famous opening, as Brian pointed out, the 2001 Space Odyssey, but it is Strauss. Not Johann. Oh, not that Strauss. Richard Strauss. I got to get that right, because they're two very different composers. So the ad, or whoever contacted these musicians, sent them the Strauss piece to play. Now, here's the thing. I want to be very clear. The email did say that after the audition, after this person was selected to be on the Nissan ad, they were given the Strauss piece. So they were given music to practice, it seemed, at least by what I see of this email. And I might actually read the email, because I do see it in the comment, in the Infinity comment. Just to clarify that I'm saying this correctly. So they were given the Strauss piece. These musicians who had auditioned and passed were given the Strauss piece. And then on set, they were given the information, two pieces of information. They were given the information that A, they could play anything that they wanted, just play whatever they wanted while people were filming. Just remember that. You've got 30 or some odd, 30 or more musicians there around surrounding the car playing whatever they wanted. So obviously they're not playing the same piece. That's the first thing. The second thing is they were told that there was going to be music dubbed over that. So at the very least, they were given the information that at least they would be seen playing their instruments, that they were playing anything they wanted. And it kind of did look a little random from what you could see. They obviously were not playing the same piece at the same time. And then music was going to be dubbed over that. So they were given that information. Now, what I would say would be very kind of shady, kind of sleazy, this would be a little controversial to me if they did not know this. They were not given the information that the music dubbed over would be a bad performance of the Strauss piece. So maybe they were thinking, "Oh, this is gonna sound like, Milwaukee Symphony or Chicago Symphony Orchestra or Houston, to play this piece, a fine rendition of the Strauss piece over our playing." So they weren't given that kind of information. And the comedy, was it's a bad recording. I think it was like a recording from 1974, so a long time ago. And I can't remember if it was a youth symphony or an adult amateur orchestra or whatever the case is. I'm not sure, but it was a bad recording on purpose. Now, whoever was in charge of talking to, communicating with these musicians, they really should have said, "Hey, listen, it's going to be a bad recording for comedic effect." If they had withheld that information, I can understand the shock. I can understand, "Wait, you gave me the Strauss piece to practice, to look at, and then you say on set we play whatever we want. Okay, then and then you say the music is gonna be dubbed over. Okay, so it's not gonna be our music, it's not gonna be our recording. You just want us visually, to play." So the musicians at least had that information, but according to this email, they did not have information that it was gonna be a bad performance, and that's what caused the shock. Now, this is just from an email that TwoSet got, and actually you can see the email pasted in the comments. And if you're curious, I can read it, but I might just continue on. So I would say, yeah. If I wanted to play in a commercial, and it was an audition process, so I had to practice for the audition, and then I was given music to play, and then on set, I'm like, "Wait, I'm not supposed to play this. I'm supposed to just improvise." Okay, that's annoying. For a professional wouldn't even put up with that. Even if it was paid, they would never, work with those people again. At least I wouldn't. I wouldn't give them the time of day. But for kids, wanting to be on TV, I can understand at least, talking with a parent or a guardian or a music teacher, like, "Hey, I've got this. What do you think?" But if they didn't know it was going to sound bad, yeah, that's pretty sleazy. I would say that was very, very, very poor communication. But as far as the humor of the whole ad is concerned, I, even as a music teacher, having gone through all my own music education, I just I didn't find it offensive at all. Now, I actually don't get offensive. I don't get offended that easily. I mean, even if it's, I mean, anything that would offend me would probably be something religious, like if there was like an actual sacrilegious, depiction of Christ or something like that. It is art, and I wouldn't have it censored, but the artist would answer to God when they died. I wouldn't like, raise my pitchfork and say, "Down with you, down with your art. You need to be canceled." No, it's just like it's just I'm with Al on this one. It's just a little bit. If you want to call it tasteless, yeah, it's a little tasteless, but it's not. It's not overly insulting at all. So, and it. I will say this: the ad does not do. The ad does not do what the people are protesting about, and that is like, oh, you're making it stereotypical that that pursuing music and music making is a bad thing, and it's not that at all. Um, I just don't see it, at least in America, that parents would be, very discouraged to have their children pursue. By the way, people, I want to say this too. People who, like, multitude of comments were saying, my parents didn't have me. I wanted music lessons, but my parents said no. It's like that could be a number of reasons, and I'm gonna give you two reasons. One, music lessons are expensive. So maybe the parents couldn't afford it. Maybe they had to think of putting a meal on the table. And that's a hard truth. Some people just can't afford music lessons, and it's not cool. And people are trying. I do see people being very active trying to make music lessons as affordable as possible, especially music programs like in public schools, like orchestra or band. So that's cool. And actually music rentals, renting a music instrument really doesn't exceed $35 a month. So you can actually have a pretty legitimate instrument to start your kid and be fine with that. So that's one reason parents, say no music lessons. But you know what? The other reason is, I'll be real with you guys. Students don't practice. It's very common that students don't practice. It's very common that students do not stay disciplined. I would say in an orchestra where you have your peers, you do have that fire under you to practice, at least to get on the level as all your peers in orchestra. But if you're by yourself and you have no motivation, I mean, I I just I had students, I'm like, I wish they would quit because they didn't practice. They would come in every week, just never getting better, never applying even 5 minutes a day on their instrument, and their parents were, checking 100, $150 a month, to do that. I'm like, you need to stop and find something else. And actually, the third reason kind of is tied with the second reason. Some parents actually, either the parents or the children, they'll put their child in everything: school clubs, sports, different art, cooking, culinary, and then like three different musical instruments, and that on top of school and maybe church activities. The kid's tired, and so the kid won't apply themselves. They won't master anything. They won't master any of those all those activities that the parents are putting them through. So the parents then, of course, not seeing results, could get discouraged and say, "Listen, you're not playing violin anymore. You're not practicing anymore, and I'm spending all this money, and I have to pull out violin for my budget or just for your good." So I kind of side with parents a little bit more when it's not just a callous reason. I'm just gonna say it's not a malicious. I would say maybe 0.1%, 0.01% would be malicious, like, "Oh, I wanna deprive my child of music lessons even though they want." No, I mean, they parents would have a reason of some kind. I don't know the whole truth of the matter, but chances are parents do have a good reason for not putting their kid in music lessons. I'll give you a real life example. I have a family member, and he's in his 70s, so I have a relative in his 70s, and he played, trumpet and buglehorn in high school, but he was also an athlete. And his father said, "You need to do one or the other, but you're not doing both." And he wished his father supported him in both. And I'm like, "Listen, your father was smart. You can only invest your time in really one thing to master it." And he quit music and pursued sports. And he's like, "I wish I stuck with music, but I wish my father had me do both." And that's just, I'm gonna be real. On top of a full-time school schedule, kids really should only stick with one thing. So maybe these people in the comments saying, "My parents they didn't let me pursue music or take music lessons," is like, well, were you doing sports? Were you not practicing? Were you involved with too many things? Could they not afford it? Like, cut your parents some slack. They must have had a good reason why they, or maybe a reason, just a reason why they would say no. So anyway, and I would say the reason would most likely not be because they didn't want to put up with your noisy music making and practicing. I'm sorry. I'm a practical, pragmatic. I'm just real when it comes to my music teaching rants because I saw for 7 years now, I have seen people not practice. And yeah, there we go. So let's go into the chat. Let's get back to the chat, uh, and then we'll talk about youth and success. Let's talk about that, youth and success, and then we'll talk about getting old, but in a good way. All right, so Brian says, from what I gather from the comments, the children weren't actually playing, they were syncing. The actual playing was done by adults who were told to deliberately play poorly. Yeah, actually, see, there's all sorts of information just floating around. My perspective is they had an old recording of adults playing and then dubbed that music over the visual playing. So yeah. So already the story is convoluted. What this story needs is some good journalism, some honest journalism with good integrity and all that good stuff. Looks like you guys are chatting amongst yourselves. Wow, last time I checked, PewDiePie had 89 million subs. That's just insane. He's his own industry. He's like the Elon Musk of YouTube. That's insane. And I understand that YouTube doesn't really like him either. It's like how can you not like a man who is probably making like millions of dollars on YouTube? I wouldn't know what his net worth is from YouTube. Oh no, the chat skipped. But I do see. Oh, I see Daniel Craig. Welcome. I thought I saw some others. All right. The chat jumped again, so let's go ahead and try. You guys are talking amongst yourselves, which is so awesome. Brian Gilmartin says, sounds like some of the outrage is rooted in parents being protective of their own children. It's a lot. Now, that's another thing I wanted to mention. So thank you for saying outrage. I'm not going to get my head examined or anything, but there was a little bit when I saw all this response, there was just a little moment, just a little second or two. I'm like, am I insane? Like, I'm not offended by this. And it really speaks to the outrage culture. I was telling the professor today, I was like, I think we're so hardwired now to get mad at something. I truly think, guys, this might be far-fetched, might sound a little far-fetched, but I actually think people need to be mad at something. If they're not mad at something, they might feel like they don't have a cause, something worthy to fight for. And so if they get really, passionate about something, that centers them in a strange way. But I think we're too forward. I think we just had this just knee-jerk reaction to really, write in all caps, like, this is so insulting. I mean, even the person, and I'm sure the person who responded to me is a nice person, but he had to, or she, I don't know if it's a he or she. I'll just say he for now. He responded to me. He was kind of upset at me as a music teacher for not understanding why this ad is so insulting. And then I said, I do understand in so many ways. And I gave him my reasoning and all that. And then he's like, okay, I understand. I agree with you. But that said, I hate this ad. And he had to capitalize the word hate. And I'm like, do you really have to capitalize the word hate? That emphasis. I think we're really hardwired to be very passionate with our, using our keyboard here. And you know. But in any case, Dr. Y says the ad reminded me a bit of the Music Man when the band first plays. Well, yeah, okay. So there you go, right? Was it more like a comedic effect? Go Team Ghost Planet makes a really good point. Music sounds like a cutthroat business. I will say, um, and I put out my thumbnail. I don't know if I worded it correctly, but I said the drama in classical music because I think classical musicians, just speaking from experience, uh, they're classical musicians are an uptight bunch. They're really uptight. They're uptight when they're teenagers, and they're uptight when they're in their higher music education level, like in a university performance major setting, at the colleges. And they're uptight even in the civic and the symphonic level, like the professional levels. No, I'm not saying all musicians, certainly not. And actually, Daniel's show, the John Williams stream, the conductor was so fun and so likable. He was a geek. He was, and I wrote that to Houston, saying, and I mean this in the most respectful way, the most complimentary way. He was very lively, very upbeat, friendly guy. So, I mean, I am not saying this of all professional classical musicians, but there is a lot more uh, kind of that diva persona. I was a diva in high school. I was not diva like ostentatious like an opera singer or whatever, but I would say prima donna because I wanted to be a world class musician, so I thought I was better than everyone else. But that kind of attitude, I would say classical musicians in general struggle with egotism. Oh, I shouldn't say in general, but I would say a lot of people that I've met are really uptight and they have an egotistical problem that I had once, but you have to outgrow that. You really do. Or birds of a feather stick together. If you are surrounded by, people who are uptight and have that ego. It's kind of like a, Ghostbusters with Dana and that one violinist. He's kind of like, to Bill Murray's character. That's kind of true of classical musicians. They're just, especially if they're good, if they're really, really good, that it's not far from the truth. So I would say I would agree with Go Team Ghost Planet that music, the music industry in general, whether it's classical music or you know, um, the pop artists that we see, I would say it is pretty cutthroat. You are right about that. Is it possible they thought you informing them it was a bad piece joke that the kids would ham it up instead of looking serious? I don't know. Am I'm not. I half understand what you're saying. They thought of informing them that. Yeah, actually, so if I understand you correctly, I think the communications department failed on that one. They dropped the ball on that one. They should have informed the kids that it was going to be a joke, and um, it should have been the kids and the performers in the ad knowing that it was supposed to sound bad. Like, oh guys, we're gonna actually have this make it sound bad because it's about the mother rolling up the windows and stuff like that. If the musicians were given the context, I actually don't think it would be as controversial as it is now. I hope I'm reading your question correctly. I think they could still look serious. Um, well, I mean, okay. The musicians didn't even look that serious. They didn't like they were just looking at their music, playing their music like kids would, you know. Um, but I think it would have behooved the Nissan communications department to say to the families of the kids, saying, "Hey, this is what we're after. Would your we've selected your child to participate in this Nissan ad. We're going for this joke." So if all of that was up front, I think that would have assuaged the whole controversy. Now, people still hated the humor. They did not like the humor. But anyway, uh, yeah, Al, let's see. I am so happy that we are of the same mind on this commercial. LOL. Yeah, I know. I know. It's like, yeah, I'm probably viewed as a terrible music teacher for thinking it's a little humorous. I mean, it's not guffaw, funny. It's just a bit funny. How'd you not get a notification? How dare you? I talked about Ahsoka Tano, so maybe YouTube's like, down with your notifications. Welcome though. Good to see you. Yeah, exactly, Brian. You mean besides YouTube being YouTube? I took a YouTube survey and I gave them only complimentary comments because I want to be monetized, for goodness sake. I'm almost at 2,000 subscribers, y'all. And I am leagues away. I'm years away from being monetized. So I'm gonna kiss up wherever I can. I have integrity, I do. Horizon Talker says, I did a lot of stuff in high school and college on top of music lessons. It was tough to really invest in any of it. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have cut some of it. Yeah, it's you have to cut your extracurricular activities if you're going to do something like music and sports. And to be honest, and this is just my opinion, I'm sure some people have done it well, but you got if you're gonna be if you wanted to do music and sports, I would say you would have to drop one of them. I just yeah, if you really want to excel in something, you have to focus on one thing. Did my chat jump again? Yeah, it did. Oh, so Daniel Craig says, I know one person who managed to get his black belt, take violin and guitar while going to school, and pulled it all off. Now, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say it's a rarity. I think narrowing your perspective down to one thing at an early age unnecessarily limits your perspective. You do need to experiment some, but there are also limits. Oh, I'm not saying you can't explore. I should clarify. I'm not saying you shouldn't explore. I'll give you a couple examples with a couple students. One student I had never practiced because first of all, I don't think she was interested. Second of all, I don't think she liked me teaching her. She was kind of like, she didn't like instruction. At least from me, I guess. And I try to be fun with her and stuff, but she just had a hard time following instruction. I think that was just her personality. But she was involved with 5 major things in school. She was in drama. She was in sports. She was in the, kind of, she was in some kind of dance. And then she was violin and she was another instrument too. She was like in 5 major things on top of her full-time school schedule. She was 10 or 11 years old when I taught her. And so she never practiced. And then another student I had, I wanted her to quit so badly. I was like begging to the parents with my eyes because I couldn't say it out loud in front of her. I said, hey, she's really interested in reading. You should get her into a book club or have her set up her own book club. She loves reading. Have her join a writing group. She doesn't like violin. I would get her in the waiting room. She's reading a book, and I'm glad she reads books. She loves reading. And then she didn't leave her book with her father. Instead, she brought her bag in because she put the novel in the music bag. And then I would tune her violin, and she wouldn't look at her music book while I would tune her violin, her terribly constructed violin. She pulled out her novel and read. I'm like, listen, I know it's taking me 5 minutes to tune your poorly constructed violin, but can you wait half an hour before you read your book again and focus on the music? And so I was thinking, well, okay, she's done 2 years of violin. She ain't learning violin. She doesn't like violin. She loves reading. So I'm like, hey, parents, put her in a creative writing class or something, or get her into books, get her into an activity in the library or something like that. So I would say, yes, students really do need to explore. I would say this is my principle. I'm not saying it's perfect. Get the child doing, one thing or at least a couple of things at the start of it for one academic year and see if they like it. Maybe they like something else. Maybe they'll drop one thing and then just stick with one thing. And they're like, okay, 2 years later, 3 years later, actually, I kind of want to pursue this. Sure, there's room for that. So actually, my rule of thumb is keep the kid committed for the academic year. Keep the kid committed for between 6 to 12 months of constant practice. With violin, you just do not see progress unless you are practicing 30 minutes every day for 6 months. You do not see progress on violin unless you are naturally gifted and practice every day. And I was trying to tell these kids, so I would say have the kids explore, but not all at once. I mean, if it is all at once, it needs to be in the summer when they're not in school, when they have nothing else to do and they're not employed yet. Oh, you continued. Like people who do nothing but sports tend to wind up with nothing they carry forward into adult life, but more casual programs for sports and arts are really lacking. I don't know about sports. I would say art. Actually, when I was in college getting my music education major, my school district dropped 12, I think it was 12, as much as 12 art and music teacher positions. My school district. The one I came out of and then went to college, and I was like, wow, that's not cool. Gigawatt says it is also today's culture mindset to shelter children too much, so anything they perceive as negative triggers outrage, and that is a problem. So when I saw these parents' comments, I was like, I would say support your kids and encourage your kids, but you really need to also foster this kind of self-initiative. Like I can't even imagine as a kid seeing an ad like that and saying, "Oh, I guess I shouldn't play violin." I wanted to play violin. Nothing was gonna stop me from playing violin. Not like a broken friendship in the orchestra, not being rejected by the cute cellist. Oh, that was embarrassing. No, you go through growing pains and middle school stuff. And sorry, yes, sorry, Prof, to put that on you. I asked a cellist. This was in middle school. I asked him in front of my best friend if he wanted to go out with me in a practice room, and he's like, no. And I still pursued music. I still pursued music after that. It's like a commercial is not going to tell me to quit. A commercial is not going to dissuade me from loving violin. Because I wasn't looking to what does that say about our culture? Is like, "Oh, the commercial dissuaded me." It's like, you listen to your favorite musical icons, and you be the judge if you wanna quit or not. Like, I was listening to world-class musicians all the time as a kid. It's like, even if there was a commercial that mocked young people playing music every single night, that wouldn't have fazed me as a kid. It's like, "Okay." So I'm still gonna play an orchestra. I'm still gonna pursue music. And I think we've lost. I'm not saying this because I'm not a parent and I really want to be careful because I don't know what parents go through, raising a child. But I think it would really uh, be beneficial. I think it would really benefit parents to really parents and teachers really. I've tried, believe me, I've tried to foster self-initiation, self-initiative. Like, I'm going to do this regardless of what culture is going to say, regardless of what a TV ad is going to say, regardless of what a YouTuber says. I'm going to pursue music. And so when I saw that outrage of that ad, I'm like, guys, okay, it's tasteless, if you want to call it that, but it's not. It's not going to go like undo a generation of music learning. Okay, that's where I was thinking, whoa, people are really, they're being a little sensitive, and I love to set, but I was like, this is where I would differ in my opinion. Learning music is hard, no question, but children need to, musicians in general, but children learning music need to really have that, develop that tougher skin, that thick skin. Uh, Brian says, as someone who grew up with anger issues related to my estranged mother. Oh, this is personal. I'm actually highly disturbed at the idea of someone wanting to be angry at everything and anything. I mean, I think we have too much of that. Don't Yeah, I mean, I really think we have too much of that. Now, again, people are typing it, they're not, like, speaking it. And, Two said for their very strong opinions on the ad, they were still very comedic. They were still very, um, they were well-spoken. They had a calm disposition. They had a very calm, quiet disposition, they weren't, I think it was more the keyboard, typing it. So, and they still had humor. It wasn't the subject I preferred they talk about, but, they still had humor regarding it. He says, "Only classically trained musicians I met in person that weren't uptight were the Harp Twins." Oh, you met the Harp Twins in person, that's cool. Yeah. No, and that yeah, actually, that makes sense. They would be classically trained. But they also have a huge presence, online presence and personality, so I don't think okay, I will say this too. I think like, if let's say I ran into Two Set in person, um, they're not uptight. In fact, they've actually I think they've probably talked about people being uptight and egotistical on their channel, as experienced by musicians. But there's a little bit of that. Unfortunately, with classical music, there's that drama. I've seen it. I've seen it in a professional orchestra. Oh my goodness! Like, I had this wonderful conductor, forgot his name, but he was a wonderful man, just very kind man. He was from East Europe somewhere, maybe Czechoslovakia. I had a Hungarian conductor, but that's not the one I was talking about. And I think, was he Romanian? I don't know, but he's like Central or East Europe. He had that accent. Wonderful, beautiful spirit of a man. And there was a clarinet soloist, and this was volunteer. This was like a civic orchestra. It was a professional orchestra, but it was we didn't get paid to play. We just got paid for the experience. And he the clarinet soloist contended with him in front of the whole orchestra. It wasn't like an altercation, obviously, but it was like an argument that was really forward and really uncomfortable. And like, he was in his 50s at the time, this clarinet player, and I was in my teens. I was like, bro, this is not professional. You should not be doing this. So yeah, that drama is definitely there in that kind of environment. No, you don't. I actually no, I completely disagree. In order to be a performer, you will have to have a high level of narcissism. No, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, narcissism is vanity, and it's kind of a very very unhealthy version of pride. It's you're self-absorbed. Yeah, you invest in yourself as a performer, especially mastering something. But no, I actually think you can be. I mean, Professor Geek knows a lot of musicians, like, world class musicians, who are really down to earth. You can be a master at your craft and lose the ego. The ego does come from the world, and you have the music world, and you have to kind of break away from that, and you also have to um, be mindful that it comes from the higher education system too. It comes from college. It comes from the university. It comes from professors. Not my professor. My professor's not egotistical. But I've come from that, and I became that a little bit because I admired a lot of these people too. So I'm like, well, I have to act like them too. Now you actually, it's very possible. In fact, I would say very, very much encouraging you guys, whoever performs or produces art, to drop the ego. I'm saying they didn't want the kids to know it was a joke because they didn't want them to play it up. Oh, yeah. So I mean, I think I see your point there. I would say, it wouldn't, like, w- what would be wrong with telling I'm not saying this to you, Daniel, but to what would be so wrong to tell these kids, "Hey, this is a joke?" Would there be a drop off in participation? Probably. But say that up front and then get your numbers. But the thing also well, no, they'd have to be young kids to have a mother at the part as the part of the joke. I don't know. Yeah. I would say it was clumsily done. I'll give it that, people who say that was poorly done, bad communication. Yeah, I understand. Definitely understand. Horizon Talker says, "A cute cellist once told me she'd date me if I was taller." I got taller, but never saw her again after that. Aw, so sad. Well, maybe you missed a lot of drama too. Cellists are weird, man. I should know. I've played it for 12 years. Yeah, paid in exposure. Yeah. All right. The great comic series, The Professor versus the Cellist. No, the kid had BO. Okay. This was in 6th grade. Oh, yeah. Um yeah, so that's all of that. Thank you for the chat. So now I wanted to segue into something else. I don't even know if I had the steam to talk about this, but we will try. But I wanted to talk about all of this context that we're seeing, the outcry, like how dare this ad insult these young people, and how dare my parents not put me in music lessons and stuff like that. So this got me thinking of another thing that I think we have a problem here in America. I uh, again, it could be the same with different parts of the world, different regions of the world, but I would say we have a huge problem with this in America, and that is we put so much pressure on our kids. Not my kids. I don't have kids, but people, American parents, American families put a lot of pressure on their kids regarding success. Now, what does that look like? Well, actually, I'm gonna be real as a music teacher. It's on a superficial level, at least in the music world. Um, the I really do hate saying this, but this is part of the music teacher experience. But I've had, you know, I gotta give you honest figures. I would say a good 70-75%, if not 80%, of my students that I've taught for 7 years now, they took violin lessons because they it was a symbol of status. It was a symbol of status among families to get their kids in music lessons. This happened a lot where parents would be supportive, but it also came with a support that really wasn't that genuine. And that is, and I'm not going to say, I'll say this carefully because this is not of every, I've had a lot of great supportive parents of my students, but I did get a handful also of parents who just wanted their kids in music lessons for the sake of music lessons, like it was a social status. Like it was like, oh well, no, oh how couth of my child to learn the violin. It's such a sophisticated instrument. It's such a a refined taste. Classical music. It's a refined taste, and I can talk about it among my social circles and stuff like that. And I can't imagine that it's only true for music. I think that could be the same of, oh, my kid's in this elite sport, or my kid made the honors roll and stuff like that. Now, by the way, there's nothing wrong with achieving all of this in music, art, honors roll, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with achieving exceptionalism. That's the American spirit. But I've seen a dark side of it. I've seen it where it's superficially imposed upon the kid, where I'm going to say this. I would ask the child. It was common. My first lesson, like my trial lesson with a lot of these kids before they quit. I've gone through many kids just quit after 1 month, 6 months, year, whatever. I've had kids who stayed, but I've also had a lot of retention issues. But I would have a trial lesson and I would just get to know. I would start with just a few questions. And one of those questions would be, well, why do you want to learn the violin? Now, the answer I'm expecting or I hope to have is the child loves the sound of the violin. The child has heard a song on the violin and they think the violin is a wonderful instrument to play, or they have like an icon, like they have a fiddler or a jazz violinist or even someone like two-step violin, or someone like Lindsey Sterling. I would expect the kid to say, "Oh, I heard this piece and I want to play this piece on the violin. Or I've heard this violin concerto." That was actually my story. I heard a violin concerto on the radio, and I was like, "I'm playing that piece," and I did in high school. Just the first movement. I played the Mendelssohn concerto first movement. I need to learn the whole concerto. I'm 35 and I haven't picked up the concerto, but I did play the first movement in high school, and I wanted to play that piece. I was like, "That is my piece. That's the piece that I want to learn," and that was my motivation. So I'm kind of expecting the same answer from a child when I first start them. When my first 10 minutes with them, those are the questions I ask. And I will say, guys, a huge percentage of the children that I started would answer one of the following, one of the two answers, and that is I don't know what violin sounds like. I kid you not. I've also had this answer, by the way. This is a sidebar. I don't know what a violin is, as an instrument. And then the third answer is like, in so many ways, I've actually heard it spoken directly, but in so many ways, it's implied. My mother's making me do this, and I have heard a couple of times where the mother makes the child do it because they wanted to learn violin as a child. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Um, I was like, I would rather teach the mom who wanted to learn violin as a kid, not teach the child of the mom who's being forced to play because of the mom's wish fulfillment. And in a lot of music lessons, I knew in my heart were just parents' wish fulfillments. And that's really sad, where there's no gumption, there's no not gumption, but there's no ignition. There's nothing igniting the kid to want to learn music. It's more of a, "Oh, my kid's learning music. My kid's learning the violin. My kid's learning the piano. My kid's learning how to sing." And it's more of a social thing. It's a thing you stamp on Facebook. And so there is a superficial dark side to music education. Um, and it's part of the overarching umbrella that I have seen in our culture, at least here in the United States, where parents use things like music and the arts as a way of gaining social status, through their kids, even though the kids. And by the way, I'm not saying this of every parent, and most parents did really want the kid to try. They wanted their child to try the violin, and not as a wish fulfillment, just as a thing for them to explore. And so I do want to make clear, it's not every parent wanting this, imposed upon their child as some sort of wish fulfillment, but it was a reality. It was a reality because it was like dental work, man. It was like pulling teeth for some kid to even hold a violin. And by the way, holding a violin at the start of it is really, really hard. And so I would say that there is this great emphasis on success, like social status. Like, I've got my kids doing this, I've got my kids doing this, and I've got my kids doing all of these things. And it's very taxing as a teacher to teach a child who really you can see wants to do something else. I had a sweet girl. She by the end of the summer, she said, "Miss Michelle, I really don't want to quit violin lessons, but I'm really concentrating on gymnastics." And she was competing. her mom told me she was competing in Charlotte, and I said, "Listen, you love gymnastics and you are competing at 7 and 8 years old. You can quit the violin." Like I had to give her, like, my approval, just bequeathing my favor upon this child because she really liked me and she liked learning the violin, but gymnastics really just absorbed her time, especially in the summer. And and that was fine. Like, that was fine to me because I knew she was gonna get into gymnastics very, very seriously. So her mom apologized too. I'm like, please don't apologize. You're getting your kid pursuing what she loved. And that was meaningful to me. And I wish there was more of that. But I hate saying this. I hate saying this. Unless I am contacted personally by phone or email, the kid signing up to the studio, uh, just it's more the parents wanting the kids to take violin lessons more than the kids. So that's what I have to say about that's an example of um, putting too much emphasis on success and social status. Now, when I say success, I want to kind of segue into a little bit of this. I think in our culture, um, we put so much emphasis on getting kids good at everything. Getting kids at good at can I say this right? Getting kids good at everything or even one thing. And then basically after you graduate from college, cap it off at 25, you're done. You don't need to learn anymore. You were we kind of have even Disney shows and stuff like that and commercials like, yeah, the youth is going to change the world and stuff like that. You could do the impossible, and I guess that's positive messaging, but at the same time it's like, why are you stopping at 25? Why are you stopping at 30? Why are you stopping at 50? It's like you can still learn. You're never too old to learn. I didn't learn SuperCollider until, well, I failed in SuperCollider at college or close to failing. And I didn't pick up SuperCollider until 28 or 29 years old. And then I'm just kind of pursuing it. I'm not a master at SuperCollider, by the way, and I don't know how to program. But like, learning SuperCollider, much later after my education, I thought, wow, you just pick up what you want to learn. And that's why I actually have great appreciation for my adult students because they disregard their age. I have when I was in North Carolina, I had a handful of adult students in their 50s and 60s, and I still have a lady out of state, not in North Carolina, but out of state, who's in her mid 60s. She learned at 59, and now she's in her mid 60s. She met a 90-year-old who picked up cello for the first time. A 90-year-old lady who picked up cello for the first time. I do not appreciate. Whoa! Let me get this spider real quick. 1 second. All right. I'm gonna die. All right. I think I got it. Nope. Die. All right. 1 sec, guys. Gotta interrupt my stream. All right. Took care of Sheila. 1 second. Okay. It wasn't that big. But I felt like a shadow. There was a shadow moving across the floor. I was like, I bet there's something there. So anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, just to cap it off, there's so much this emphasis like you got to accomplish all these things before 18. It's like no, you can keep learning, you can keep mastering. I'm an incurable learner. I'm going to be learning to my death, you know. I just and building skill and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Let's go ahead and welcome the chat or welcome the chat. That battle with that spider really put me off. put my mind out of sorts. Let me go back to the chat. That's what I meant to say. Jigwa does say, and by the way, I think this is an American thing. I can't say this of different parts of the world. Too many parents do use their children for social currency. This is that's a strong way of putting it, but just seeing it as a teacher, I had seen a little bit of that. Brian says, so they wanted their kids in music just to feed their own egos. Not gonna lie, that sounds like emotional abuse to me. I mean, if you think about it, like, excuse me, learning music is really hard. It's really hard. Now, I wanted to do it and I moved through it. It was a very long journey, but I loved music and I wanted to pursue it. I cannot imagine learning violin if I didn't want to learn violin. Violin is a very hard instrument. It's very hard to learn. It's very abstract. You gotta it's a block of wood on your shoulder, and you gotta work with your left hand, and you gotta work a different world with the bow. It's really hard. So that's I would say it is a it's if they wanted the kid to learn violin for a year just to understand how to learn something, that's fruitful. I think that could work really well. But if it is really let's say the kid wanted to learn a different instrument or a different art form, then that should have been brought to the table first initially and then have the kid excuse me, have the kid pursue what they want. Have the kid pursue. Gotta drop out. Oh, it's sleepy time. Hope you enjoy the rest of the stream. I'll catch the rest on the replay. Peace. Well, I'll see you in the future, which I'm saying now in the past. I don't know if I would say trained monkey. I want to say that, but I do think it is a poor way of prioritizing what is good for the child. Again, I can only speak as a teacher. I'm not a parent, so. Brian says, we're seeing a lot of blind pursuit of status and clout these days. Just look at all the fake fans that infiltrated every pop culture fandom worth mentioning as an example. Dude. Oh, yeah. That could be another rant. Oh, my gosh. You know, I'm going to talk about that probably another time, whether a stream or a fixed video, but no, I gotta stop talking about Star Wars, okay? Let's talk about teaching or whatever. Reminds me of an old meme. Child, my generation's gonna start a revolution. Adult, your generation couldn't start a lawnmower. That's great. That's great. Missing an epic battle. Yeah, it was great. It was fun. I'm gonna like look everywhere. I give you should I speak should I speak like Galadriel? I give you the light of Erendil, our most beloved star. May it be a light for you in dark places when all other lights go out. Kill Sheila! Yeah. Duel of the Fates should be playing during the spider fight. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I felt heroic. I hate to say this, but I didn't have a hard shoe in my room and it was going, so I had to grab a hard book, which is totally bad. My professor does not like me using the books, but it was a really sturdy book. So, but then actually I did it to pulverize it, and then I used Slipper to end it. So yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to say, wow, only 90 minutes. But in any case, let's see, I just want to make sure. I just realized I have myself streaming on YouTube, and I wonder if that affects my audio quality. So anyway, yeah. What do you guys think? Yeah. You're never too old to learn something, okay? So actually, there were I wanted to tell people in the comment sections, like, my parents didn't give me music lessons. Like, what's stopping you from music lessons now? Huh? Oh, I have a job. I'm like, perfect. You can afford it yourself. Yeah, it's just like that kind of irks me. I will say that. Like, I remember talking with a mom. She was 34 at the time, and she was interested in me teaching her daughter violin lessons. And then we were talking about it. I was at a party. It was like a social party, and she's like, "Oh yeah, because I would love her for her to learn, and because I've always wanted to learn violin, but I never did." I'm like, "Well, you're talking to a violin teacher. Why don't we set up a month worth of lessons?" She's like, "Well, she had young kids. I understand, but I mean, even if I like went to her house or something, it was a long drive. I take that back. But something like online, we could do online lessons now." And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm too old. I missed the mark." She did say that. She was 34. I was like, "What?" Like, no, no, you can learn if you why really apply that logic to anything else you wanted to do. Yeah, I wanted to go to this, river rafting trip or whatever, but nah, it's too late for me, or I wanted to learn something learning. Like I wanted to learn to paint, but I'm not a kid anymore. That's the mindset that really drives me nuts is this like I can't learn as an adult. It's too late for me. It's like that's really, if you think about it, if you really want to go deep in the psychology of it, that is a little egotistical saying, "No, it's too late for me. My life is done. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, or I'm a husband or whatever it is. It's too I missed the mark because I didn't pursue music as a career." It's like, well, maybe it's not a career, but what about just learning if you just wanna learn music? I'll stop. But it's just ridiculous, like, people are like, "Oh, I'm not 18 anymore. It's too late for me." Alright, so I should make not it's not a big announcement, but what is gonna be, in the queue for this next month of June. Uh So I really still would like to do original music videos and then also and I'll get back to you, Ace, in just a second. I do want to continue my, original music videos that I post or my SuperCollider videos that I post, but for the month of June, that actually might be brought to a halt. Not that I would stop myself from doing it on my own time. But I got this wonderful promotion opportunity with DistroKid, and they gave me a sum of money to do 4 promo videos on regarding their services. And so I'm going to do a promo video for every week in June. And I've actually been doing a lot of prep because it's basically doing 8 videos. Like I'm preparing 8 videos for the month of June, not including these streaming videos, obviously. And it's gonna so these 8 videos, 7 really, 3 of those videos that I'm gonna put in the month of June, we're gonna be talking about music fundamentals, how to read music notes on a staff. We're going to be going over the key signatures and the circle of fifths, and then we'll be going over music modes, the seven Western classical music modes, why they're important, what they sound like, and all that. And it's a lot of prep work, and so I'll have those videos to music fundamental videos to show you with like a 2-minute promotional service, which is going to be its own separate video with its own music. So I'm basically doing like 7 or 8 videos where I would only do 4 videos a month plus streaming videos. So it's a lot of work. I mean, I'm paid to do it. He actually gave me a nice sum of money, which is great. I do feel blessed to have that. But that will be the month of June. It's probably going to be more tutorials on music fundamentals, and then I'll get back to SuperCollider and original stuff. And I'm hoping to release. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, I'm hoping to release my 2 tracks tomorrow, um, as well. So I might do an additional video there, getting people interested in my 2 tracks. I really like one track. The other track is pretty heavy, but I think people will like it. Got the cover art for that already. So I'm releasing music this week, and then I'm getting into just that, yeah. So June is going to be an off month with my video production. It's going to be different content, but that's that. So just kind of look out for more, uh, yeah, promo videos, I would say. Anyway, let's see what Ace has to say. Too many think that they don't progress musically if they don't reach the skill level of someone like Randy Rhoads. If you can reach the level of enjoying yourself playing punk music, then you can succeed. It's really, honestly, it's what you want. It's really what you want. Like my 65-year-old student, she just loves the violin. It's self enrichment. She's not gonna play. She doesn't have in mind to play even at the amateur level, in an orchestra. She just loves violin, and she's become a real dear friend anyway. So it's been a really wonderful relationship. Uh, but yeah, it's like, oh, I'm not going to be world class. It's like that's fine. If you want to learn the instrument, just do it. Do it for self enrichment. So, anything else? I don't know. Probably will end it there. But I do, man. I'll have stuff to talk about next week too. Probably not music related, but in any case, always check out different channels. We've of course got Catholic Bible Geek, and with his videos on Bible surveys and different important insightful things regarding um, uh, our religion of faith, and then also Big Al reviews, rants, and rambles. I heard Al. I heard your Kenobi your Kenobi ramble or whatever, and you did say it wasn't perfect, so I'm just gonna say that. I already hear bad stuff about Kenobi and problematic stuff, and who is surprised? Who is surprised? And I will say, I will say, oh, it looks like okay. Hopefully, I'm not cutting out, but it looks like my Wi-Fi is kind of going. But anyway, I heard clips. I did hear clips of interviews, and the agenda is clear as day. It's clear as day, and the fandom menace doesn't see it. Doesn't see it. Anyway, I think I'll end there. I'm getting a little tired after that epic battle with that spider. And I will see you guys in the different chats or whatever, or also of course Monday night next week. But until I see you next, keep producing, keep preserving, and promoting the art you love, the good art you love, and I will see you later. Thanks.